In some of my pieces, my hand drawings are included. They become part of the piece. Some of my hand writing is part of the piece. It's just kind of the process that I work with. As far as the way their art world is going, I think when we work as graphic designers for other people, a lot of that world is done digitally, file sharing, printing. That's just kind of done as a production means, a necessity. As far as other artists, not necessarily. I think each artist is going to work in the medium that they find comfort in, the medium that works best for what they're presenting. One's not more valuable than another.
So I think art of the future is going to be very more tactile, very process-oriented, very heavily labored, and very, the things that digital can't give us. I think that's where if we see physical work, like I'm kind of sad to say, but I'm in the camp that I think books are going to go away. Not in the sense like they disappear forever our lives and they got taken by the Morlocks or anything, but the fact that books will be like a luxury item because we don't get our information from books. We get like stories. Like we can look at manuals, but sometimes we'll look at PDFs online. We'll talk to people. We'll look at tutorials. We don't necessarily use books as our sole means of gathering information. So they'll be like luxury items that a large percent of the populace will use, but they'll not be our day-to-day thing. As with paintings, like if you're talking about a seller's market, I've talked to people. It's the things that take hours and hours of work that you can see the labor. That's what stuff that seems to sell because you can't replicate that in a JPEG. You can't replicate that in a magazine or a book. And I mean, these have probably been issues dealt since the age of mechanical reproduction, as say way back the early 20th century. But I think it might be interesting. Like we just confound, if you're interested in making art that's not digital and base, confound the expectations. Like, what if you're in a band, you had a show and you had a white noise generator, so no one could bootleg your show? They actually had to go to the show. I mean, I don't know if this would work or not, but what if they actually had to go to a show to actually hear your music and they couldn't like upload to YouTube your stuff because you had a little generator playing that would scramble or fiddle with the sound? So there'll always be ways of getting around stuff, and I think we're always going to try to find that for art, which is also thinking outside the box.
Yes.
When you're working on something either for yourself or for like a job or something, how do you value any outside input, or do you look for outside input on something for a deadline, I guess, or just for yourself?
You mean criticism or suggestions?
Both.
Okay. I'll accept anything. I mean, if it flies, like, what's the old adage? Like, run out the flagpole, see if anyone salutes. My whole process is about just make a ton of stuff and then look at what works and what doesn't. So if people, especially if they belong to my audience in a sense, if like they're a key member of who this is going to go for, yeah, of course I'm going to listen to them. Because, I could always make more stuff. There's so many stories to be told. You just keep yourself open.
For me, I let the idea gel for a while. I tell my students before they get outside influence, take that kind of liquid idea, describe it like Jell-O, let it set up a while so that you kind of get a basis. And then once I have that basis, then I kind of have a trusted group of colleagues here and other places, and I may send the work off through email or something, or meet with them in person and get their opinion. I kind of trust that they'll listen to what I'm saying or trying to do and give me very honest feedback of, no, I'm not getting this, or, go here. I have a friend who I sent a lot of my photographs off to, and a lot of them were flowers, and his feedback was, don't send me any more flowers. Smell the flower and walk away. So I kind of took that to heart, and we got sewer covers. But, so I do think, and that's kind of well in critiques, I think you as students will kind of gravitate toward people that you start trusting, that will talk to you very honestly, and that will only kind of improve the work. But again, I hesitate to let it set up a little, because if you don't, then you end up with it just all stays liquid, and you never kind of get to that place where the project gels and becomes something. in my opinion.
Yes.
I have a question for Matt, actually. It's a twofold question. First of all, in listening to your creative process, I know that you were talking about rewriting history or thinking of kind of scrambling the order of history in the ways that we know it. And I see a couple of other artists out there, and actually even Tarantino in his most recent film, rewriting history for an audience. I guess my question is, like, is that something that you're kind of going for in your recent works, kind of something that you think that the future is headed towards, rather than taking things as it's been documented and scrambling it, or how do you feel about that whole idea?
Yeah.
Also,
Okay.
I want to know, why didn't you become a writer? You know, just seeing your passion for that.
All right, so the rewriting history is like, well, up until like you guys probably in your history classes had postmodernism, at least the idea of postmodernism has been raised. Like, history is not linear. Like, there's no arcing narrative that like we were primitives and now we're civilized beings, you know, that kind of thing, from cavemen to like the Renaissance to like, oh, we got cars and refrigerators. But the remaking history is like, well, if we experience, like, think about your own growing up. What's probably the first thing you remember hearing about? Maybe Santa Claus, I guess. You know, I'm going to pick some random. When do you think you hear about the moon landing for the first time? When do you hear about, like, JFK, or then, like, the MK Ultra trials? Or obviously, you're not going to hear, it's not from, like, when as soon as you're born, you go like, all right, 5 billion years ago, the Earth was formed, or whatever, you know. You don't parallel, your life does not parallel the development of history. You learn things in a scattered formation based on when it's taught to you in school or when you get it in history books. So we're already scrambled. And I think art is classical sense, has been making order out of chaos. We live in a fragmented narrative, which we call our lives, what we tell the stories of who we are and our friends and where we are. We go to movies and read stories because there's something we can actually understand. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Postmodernism, to me, is all about, well, let's have it actually reflect our lives, because we understand things associatively, so let's set things up so. So, like, for example, there's the Book of Kells, which is that famous illuminated manuscript in Ireland. Before I go on this metaphor, who has actually seen the Book of Kells? In person? In person. Okay, you three, plug your ears. All right. No, okay, so the idea is, like, I've never seen the Book of Kells in person, and only 3 of us have, so it's a large number of us haven't. But we understand it's there. We trust that it's in a glass case. There's a little kind of mechanism that turns the pages very slowly, and people go and see it in a certain monastery. We trust it's there, and we trust it's there because the story is convincing. Much like on Antiques Roadshow when you got 2 chairs. One is like, they look exactly alike. One was like, oh, this was bought at Walmart. And then this is actually from Versailles and it belonged to Louis XIV or so. And people go like, the Walmart one, kick that off the side. The Louis XIV one, holy crap, that's awesome, $20,000. And the person go like, I got it for $10 at a yard sale. So, but then they look like the exact same chair. It's the story that makes one thing cooler than the other. So when it comes to fractured history, or whatever, the story is how the events happen. The past doesn't exist. It's how we choose, through documents, recreate the past through our stories. So there's a lot of power there in order to tell ourselves, like, do you think we'll tell the same stories 1,000 years from now that we're telling now? That's where I'm totally in with the pragmatist camp, that things change over time based on context. And to answer your question of writers, just when I was growing up, I always had a facility for writing, but all the cool people I knew, all my friends were visual artists, and I never really got any writing feedback, so I just kind of rolled into the visual realm, and kind of now I'm kind of pursuing the writing thing primarily, and it just seems, here I'm a full-on liar if I'm saying the writing thing, and I'm kind of stumbling for words right now. But it just seems like I can do more. I can create more interesting pictures with what I can conjure in someone's mind than actually me physically doing it. I recognize my limitations on certain things, but with the words, the limitations are on you in a sense. Yes? Oh, I gotta let the moderator do the work.
If you feel that you have any value in what you do, would it be the uniqueness of the imaging or its ideological viability?
I think it's kind of working towards a fusion of the two, image and text, that hasn't been used since like medieval times in terms of fusion of calligraphy and illumination. Image, like, you know, comics, image, things working together. What design is actually for, but kind of like bracketed off and more about like the interactive experience. Like, could you write pictures and text that work together? It's kind of something I'm interested in. Whether it works or not, the court's still out, but.
Kind of retro.
What?
I say you're kind of retro, but that's cool.
Oh yeah, I'm not at this time apparently.
Okay, well, while you guys think about a couple more questions, I actually have one also.
Oh.
Actually, I have a few. I know you get your creative ideas from words, Matt.
Okay.
You write, you know, or do you just, they pop into your head and you have this big collection of words? Or is it this weird, just random thought, I mean, from readings or?
You just read a lot and listen to a lot, and you know, just that's what I was saying. The whole world's out there. If you're plucking, like, there's actually, anytime I hear a good line, I always just email it to myself or save it or whatever. Like, there's a lot of things I got from the Chappelle Show that if you mix in with something that you came up with 3 years ago while just daydreaming, mixed with something that you heard in some 19th century Latin text or whatever, words go with words. So it's just how you put them together is the cool thing, not necessarily. And same thing with images. Images can come from everywhere. It's how you arrange it. It's like cooking. Ingredients, it's how you put the ingredients together. But yeah, just like, you know, in art, there's always the idea of high versus low. Just get rid of that distinction. It's just material.
Okay. Now, Benita, you have your ventures in Chicago and here going together. Are you still working on that project, or is it done and you've moved on to something different? I mean, are you finished with the project?
For the printing and framing of the 77 pieces, that is finished. However, the next portion of adding the interactivity, connecting it online, and kind of having it breathe in that space is not finished yet. There are many more images that kind of correspond to that weren't included in that piece, that kind of the series probably will continue, but that piece is finished.
Okay.
All my helpers say it's finished too.
Anybody else have any other questions? No? Okay, well, we would like to thank everyone very much for coming. Benita and Matt, it was great to actually be able to learn about your guys' work and the process behind it rather than just walking by a gallery and seeing the stuff there. I'd like to thank everyone else for attending, and we will now be adjourning to the gallery so that we can further view the works of Matt and Benita. And I've been informed there are brownies, carrot cake, cheesecake, and coffee available downstairs. And the artist would also be on hand for any questions that you might have. And we also ask that you sign the guest book and make any comments about the art or tonight's symposium or anything like that. So on behalf of the university, thank you very much.
Thank you.